Clock, I gotta mute it for a second so I don't irritate anybody.
Yep, and we are just about live streaming. We are recording and it is now pushing out there to live stream. So we are ready when you are, Mr. Chairman.
Looks like we, just turned 10 o'clock. We'll call the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee to order. We'll have a roll call. Is that something I do as chair then, or?
Yep, you run it.
Okay. We'll have Commissioner Horton.
I am at my secondary residence in Mecosta County, Rodney, Michigan.
Gary Jalazinski, I'm participating from my home in Chippewa Township, Isabella County, Michigan. We do have a notification that Commissioner Hope, who's normally the chairman, is not able to make it to the meeting this morning. And we have a guest, Commissioner Hutchinson is present, along with Margaret McAvoy, our county administrator, and also in the background, Nicole. She's running all the computer gizmos to make this happen. We'll do a call to the public.
There is no public at this time, Mr. Chairman. I do see Treasurer Steve Pickens has joined the meeting. He's just coming in with his audio, so perhaps he has a comment at public, or maybe he's here for his agenda item. But
he's on his video now too. There he is, Steve. There's Steve.
If other than Mr. Pickens, there is no public at all joining the meeting.
Commissioner Hutchinson's here too.
Sorry, yes, sir.
Gentlemen, have anything you want to say in public comment? I take it not. We'll move on then on our agenda. The first item is consider accepting and placing on file the February 4, 2021 routine personnel items as presented. I looked at them this morning and they're all step increases that follow our guidelines for that. Nothing out of the ordinary. Are there any comments or questions regarding the list?
Oh, Margaret, I was going to say it, but go ahead. You go.
Chair, I had spoken with Chairman Hope about moving item 8, which is the routine personnel form discussion, up to the discussion with 4, or adding it as a 5. We could do that, or we can wait and do it at the end of the meeting, but they are kind of connected. So whatever you would prefer is fine with me.
Okay, you kind of broke up on me a couple of times. You say there's additional.
So item 8 on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Is routine personnel items form discussion. I had spoken with Commissioner Hope about, did we want to move that up to a new item 5 because it's a connected discussion, but you may not be taking an action on it, or we could just have the discussion in item 4, or we can leave it at 8, whatever you would like to do.
Well, let's move it up. Do we not want to take any action then on the routine personal items until we have this item discussed?
Sure, whatever you would like to do.
All right. So we'll move then to the routine personal items form discussion. Margaret?
So, Chair, I added that to the agenda today for really for one reason. This form seems to have been in existence for many years. It was certainly in existence when I came here. And I will be honest with you, I've always questioned why that goes to a public meeting in my head. But, you know, just it bubbled up this last time as I was putting the agenda kind of back into, let's talk about that. So, you know, this information, just so people know, as public employees, as employees of the county, if anyone in the public wanted to know the wages of any of the employees, you know, that's public information. That's something someone could FOIA. But I really don't know what the benefit is to have in the public arena, which anything in the packet is in the public arena. It's online. It's now on YouTube. It's across whoever wants to dial in, look in, whatever, or look at YouTube later. And I don't really see the benefit of the information. particularly when a lot of that information, sometimes we talk about, well, I ask, well, why did somebody leave? Why did they resign? Or what happened here? Why didn't they get a step increase or whatever? Then we end up either saying, I don't feel comfortable saying that in the public place, or, giving a beige answer. And to me, that information really should not be public. We have people that just don't work out, situations that don't work out, and they need to be, dealt with in a professional, compassionate way. And sometimes we have a person in a position that isn't working out, and we know we're going to terminate them. But I would say, unless it is a suspected, in my opinion, and in my experience, unless it's a suspected criminal situation or another situation that is kind of a high level of something that went bad, I always like to give people the opportunity to resign. I just think it's better for them. It's better for us. They sign the resignation, they sign the waiver of claims, and it works out well. So when I look at this, I just don't see any benefit to having this information out in the public, because it just seems to me that an employee doesn't necessarily want all this information known. So that's my discussion for today. I would like us to consider, what's the purpose of this? Why do we do that? Why do we continue to do that? And is there a true benefit from it for the commissioners or the public? I don't see it, but I'm not a commissioner. Action being taken of why, or the situation about why someone leaves, really, I just don't think it's for the public realm. Or other things. There could be other things besides that situation on this form. And as a person who has, we have 270 some employees between the county and the court. I don't see the purpose of the form. So I would like us to consider eliminating it from Board of Commissioners meeting agendas.
I'm wondering if there's some middle ground someplace, because I do look at the form and I understand where somebody has a resignation and I've asked that question before, and I'm thinking, maybe it's not appropriate to ask that question. It's personal information. But I do look at it just knowing that our largest expense in our operational budget is personnel, and it gives me some information on what's going on at that level. I don't know if there's some way that we could change the form, but I do like the feedback for it. Terry, Commissioner Hutchinson.
Yes. Can't we use executive session for the real sensitive stuff that we would do in that case?
So I think it's a difference between operations and policy. We don't bring personnel issues to the board. Those are handled either by the elected officials who have a co-employer relationship with the Board of Commissioners, or by department heads who report to me. And then I am the person actually who's sitting at the table with the employee and the department head having the discussions. Again, I just don't think I don't think that's in the realm of what needs to be discussed. Now, if you really, Commissioner Hutchinson, have one employee, that's me. So I report to the Board of Commissioners. Nobody else reports to the Board of Commissioners. So as far as, that employer relationship, yes, technically, unless you work for the courts or the elected officials, court employees are court employees. The county provides the funds to the courts, but they're a separate entity, kind of. That's a long discussion. The elected officials, the employees of the elected officials office, the Board of Commissioners are co-employers with the elected officials. However, the elected officials, according to statute, have the authority to, run their operation as they see fit, basically, and hire their staff, and they manage their department or their office. So you know, I wouldn't recommend going into executive discussions to talk about any personnel matters unless we have a lawsuit from somebody. Then we would go into closed session and we would have our attorney there and inform you of that. I will honestly say that's never happened to me in my career, so I hate to jinx us, but that's never happened. I'm looking at who's on the line here today, and you know, I've been in a situation with a number of our department heads and elected officials, and walked them through kind of how to make sure that this decision and this action can be taken in a respectful way with the employees. So that at the end of the day, they're going to have a bad day, but we want them to have as much respect and support from us for their next actions. But in the end, sometimes you just have to do that. And that's not, you know, we do that very rarely. We have a great employee base. I'm just saying in general, we all know that most everybody has a step increase. You know, we have a step plan. People move from here to there. That just happens naturally. You know, we're looking at, you know, what is the hourly rate? What is the whatever? To me, that information is everybody, you know, I'm concerned that we have employees' names on a form that are going out in the public realm for a purpose that I am not sure what that is. If the issue is that commissioners would like to know, you know, I don't know, do you want to know who got hired? Maybe that's something of interest to you. You know, you have constituents and you see them someplace and say, hey, I see that you got employed at such and such, you know, welcome to the county. Maybe that's something that's useful that the board would like. I don't know that that needs to be an action item on a board of commissioners put into a packet that's on the internet. You know, we live in a different world than we used to 20 years ago, where commissioners got packets mailed to them, and at the end of the meeting, you either kept what you wanted and you threw away the rest. Now all the information is out in the universe. And if the Board of Commissioners wants to keep it the way it is, that's fine too. That is your choice. We'll do whatever you want, but I respectfully think that we need to revisit it. And I think that we have been very fortunate. There has not been a pushback on that. And I will do whatever the Board of Commissioners wishes to do. And if you wish to do nothing and leave it the way it is, that's your choice.
Jerry?
Jordan?
Just a couple thoughts. In regards to the form, there's a lot of, you know, there's information on there that is Board of Commissioners. I do think we need to have, I guess, access to, but maybe not in this forum. Margaret, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I guess that's one of the questions. Do we want to have that available in the public forum? And certainly, I mean, most of it's all perfunctory. Most of it, I mean, I don't think we've ever even had an issue in the 8 years that I can remember, 8+ years that I've been on the board. I don't think there's been anything other than goes right into the consent agenda after we discuss it. So I don't know. I can't think of anything that we had remotely on there. And like Margaret said, if it was to deal with personnel or items like that, we're going not just down a slippery slope, we're falling off the cliff if we discuss it, because there's really no good that could come out of that in a public meeting. I would like to have Commissioner Hope involved on this preliminary discussion. I think that would have been I think this is where this discussion needs to happen first, if we're going to take it off. I am in favor of taking it off though, just because I don't see a lot of good. Well, actually, that's not a lot of good. That's not a good statement. I think the benefit of it is exceeded by a potential risk, but I do also, I like to personally see them sometimes. I like to see them. I just don't think we need to, I don't know if this putting it into our regular board meeting in the work session to discuss, and then putting it to the regular meeting for the County Board of Commissioners is the proper venue. Maybe, Margaret, can we do something like a memo to does it have to be proper board action, or could it just be informational purposes or anything? Could we do something like that? Or how would that work? I know it can be discovered once it goes out there. I mean, but there's different layers of discovery. I mean, so.
Mhm. So what you have now is you have this form that is part of the packet for the Finance Committee. And then the packet for the work session and part of the packet for the Board of Commissioners. So
Mhm.
once it goes into a committee packet, those are publicly available, obviously. The work sessions and Board of Commissioner sessions, the agendas and the packets are on the website, which they should be. We want to be transparent. However, if the, yeah, and I would like to have Commissioner Hope involved too in the discussion, and we can table this discussion for today and think about it. But, if the Board of Commissioners said, Margaret, we really like that information for our own benefit, then, I could just email it to you. And if somebody else thought they wanted to see it out in the world, and they could do a FOIA request, and it would be, if it falls under what we need to release, which obviously it would, we would release it. But having it part of the packet puts it in the atmosphere on the internet. And that's where my concern is. I don't think it's there.
Yeah, and we could possibly, to get back to Commissioner Jelazinski's point, or I don't know if maybe I went a step further than Jerry did, is that perhaps we could just receive it like an informational only purposes from, again, I'm working this through and I do think we need to table it, but I'll make this statement, is maybe we can get it for informational purposes only. And if a commissioner feels that something's on there, then maybe put it through finance administration or something like that. But maybe not even go that far. I think that's pushing it too. So I would be in favor of making a motion to table this, but again, I do think though that we should definitely look into not making it a regular part of our business and our regular meeting. But I think right now I'd like to make a motion, Jerry, if you wouldn't mind, that we table this for the next Finance and Administration Committee meeting.
I will support that. So we've
Okay.
had a motion to table this item to the next Finance and Administration meeting. Additional discussion? I don't, as acting chair right now, I don't have a problem with a solution where we are getting this information in a email and not providing it for a meeting, because we typically just I think I'm the only person ever voted against this list in the 6 years that I've previously been on this commission, but I do find the information valuable. And if we could be assured of getting it in a private email, if something comes up, then we have the ability to contact administration to have our questions answered. But it does give us then the information to have an understanding of what our workforce is, instead of just having a blob of hundreds of employees, knowing how those employees function and where they are and the like. I think it's important. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. This is tabled then to our next Finance and Administration meeting. Going back then to item number 4, do we need to take a motion on that? Or are we going to handle this one somewhat differently?
That is what, routine personnel items. Hold on, let me get
Yes.
my agenda up here. I would say for right now, since we tabled the other motion, we'll just, we're gonna follow our policy then, and I'll make a motion that we consider accepting and placing on file the February 4th, 2021 routine personnel items as presented.
I will second that motion. So it's moved and seconded to consider accepting and placing on file the February 4th, 2021 routine personal items as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It does move forward then to our work session. The next item. Consider approving the following financial institutions as designated depositories per recommendation of the county treasurer. Bank, CIBC Bank, Citizens Bank, Fifth Third Bank, Flagstar Bank, Horizon Bank, Independent Bank, Isabella Bank, Isabella Community Credit Union, JP Morgan Chase, Lion Capital Advisor, MBIA Michigan Class, Mercantile Bank of Michigan, Multi-Bank Securities, North Star Bank, PNC Bank, SunTrust Robinson Humphrey, BCF Bank, and Wells Fargo. Steve, you're here. I know we get this list every year. It seems like we have fewer banks on the list than we've had in the past. Maybe it's,
There's fewer banks out there. We've had a lot of mergers and stuff that's taken place, people buying up other people. That's probably why the list has shortened.
but if I remember correctly, the reason we have so many is to disperse our assets so that they are protected by federal insurance in case of loss.
Yeah, we have insurance, up to 250,000, per deposit kind of thing. And there's no way that we can put it all even in these banks to cover all that. But these people on the list are people I've been dealing with for many years. We take and we rate every one of these institutions. There's a red light, yellow light, green light kind of thing that we look at. Go look through their portfolios, look through their funding balances and stuff. And we do a routine check on those quite often. And if they come into the yellow area or the red area, we don't deal with them. These are banks that have been, or institutions that have been very good with us. And I would strongly suggest that we continue with this list.
Okay, you made one comment that our reserves are greater than can be accommodated by these number of banks. What do we do with the other reserves?
Well, we're investing those. I mean, we're still investing those. We have access to a lot of different types of things with these institutions. There's just no way that the 40 or $50 million that we're investing, that we're going to be guaranteed the $250,000 per institution. This list would be, I'm not sure if there's enough banks in Michigan or institutions in Michigan to be able to cover, so we'd have $250,000 in each one of them. So we take them by their ratings. It's a good competitive thing that so we can get the best rates, knowing that we've got a variety of institutions that we can use. We haven't lost a nickel ever, so we're doing pretty good with them. And these are the ones that, like I said, we've dealt with for many years.
All right. Questions, comments? Mr. Gordon? Commissioner Hutchinson?
Have we ever taken a bank off the list?
Oh, definitely. Yep. There's been some times when that rating comes below our standards and below maybe the standards of Public Act 20, to which we have to follow. And yes, we have taken those off and not continued with them on the list. The biggest thing is we yank the money out of there to start with, and then don't further go with them and then take them off the list.
Commissioner Horton?
Steve, I think I've asked this question in the past when this comes up every year. To me, I know you have to do this, and it just seems to me so in today's technology world, and we had discussed this technology coming onto this, but with the amount of dollars out there now, and I know the bank limits and all this other FDIC and all that protecting our money, but you think there would be, again, this is nothing that you can do or change, but it just doesn't make any sense to have all these multiple entities to depositing money all over the place. It just, it seems like it's more risk than reward for doing that. Obviously you have to do it, but you would think that there could be something done to change this. So entities such as ourselves wouldn't have to go through all these different banks and all the accountings and all the level of security that your office has to do, your workload has to do. It's just, again, it just boggles my thought process that, and again, it happens all the time. I completely understand what you're doing. I completely, with businesses, it's kind of the similar, but you would think that there's could be other shiftings and things like that could be done instead of doing it like this. But again, you have to follow what you have to follow. And
yeah, that would take a legislative fix.
100%. Yeah, exactly. I know.
And understand that they all have to have roots in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the standards of Public Act 20. We have limits on how much money percentage wise we can deposit in any one institution. There's a lot of checks and balances there that, that we have to go through in order to make sure that, we're securing our funds the best we can.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Like I said earlier, it's nothing that you're doing wrong or you're doing right, or you're following the rules and laws. And it's like a lot of our, I don't want to say use the term archaic, but a lot of things that aren't keeping up with the times necessarily. You think you'd be able to, you know, do some more creative, not more creative, but we could change and not have to do this. But it is what it is. And I'll make the same speech probably next year at this time. So, well, thank you.
So noted.
So,
Any
sorry,
other
that's
questions?
all. I'm good.
Margaret, did you have anything to add to this?
No,
All right, well, I'll move list of banking institutions forward to the work session for consideration.
I'll support that.
It's been moved and supported to consider all these banks for as designated depository for county funds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It moves forward to the work session.
Thank you.
The next item is consider accepting and placing on file the fiscal year 2021 first quarter financial management services report as presented. Steve, you're present, so why don't you give us the highlights of your report?
Oh, look at Jerry. Look at the young guy showing us up with his background. Come on, man. First of all, we got the first Steve in the last committee showing us all, knowing all this stuff. Now I got you, with this faux background because I know you're not there.
No,
So,
no.
you got that faux background back there and stuff like that. But,
Jim?
that's,
Commissioner Horton, you can tell when it's a false background when half the head disappears when you move.
Yeah.
well, I lost internet for that last discussion a smidge and I kept right on going like nothing ever happened. So there you go.
Yeah, well, there's nothing they can do about the glare, though. That's the bad thing that I can't.
There's
do.
powder.
So, yeah, there you go.
No, the only thing that makes it unreal is you don't have any North Face equipment on or anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I got to have the North Face to be, truly into the mode of skiing. North Face or one of the other things. So
Yeah, for sure. No, actually, I'm today I'm actually sitting in your offices, or I'm here at the county. So yeah, you would just see, Melissa's area back there or whatever as we.
It's Mount Pleasant in the background.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
there it is right there. We've been looking for it. I've been looking for it since 1997 when I moved to town, but there is actually Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, there. Yep. Yeah.
Good point,
Yeah.
Jerry. There's Mount Pleasant.
We're getting back to business. We don't have anybody else watching our live feed right now, but we'll get back to business.
Right. Sure. No. Great. That. So you have the report. I mean, just a few. I'll just kind of zip through it like I normally do, but and then we can talk into length on any of them that you'd like. But first one, kind of the normal process that I always go through, and just kind of that overall assistance and oversight, and that I try to lend as be a resource to the administrator controller's office, and continue to work as they and as many people as can work remotely in the county, just to kind of be a like I said, a resource to bounce things off, just to make sure that things are operationally running correctly and still have strong controls and that type of thing. So kind of just being that resource. The second point, continue to work with the trial court. They've continued to be great about getting me their bank reconciliations on a monthly basis. That was kind of an issue a few years ago in the audit, and so we kind of developed a new summary process that the auditors seem to be happy with, and so as long as the auditors are happy, we continue to do that. So we continue to do those summaries for the auditors. Third point was the county incentive program was a big deal this quarter. There's always that December 1st drop dead, no exceptions deadline for the submission of your county incentive program information, and what that is basically a continuing disclosure, I guess I would call it, and a transparency disclosure information that the state of Michigan requires. It's changed a little bit. There used to be 4 forms that we would post and kind of twofold. Submit to Treasury to be posted, so they would have, and then also posted on your website, on the county's website. That has changed a little bit, where one of them is more of a live data related to that filing. So it's a link instead of just a static form that gets posted out there. So there's a link that Treasury maintains pretty much everybody's data out there related to. There's a form called the Form F-65 that basically takes a lot of your financial information, your general ledger, and dumps it into a different format, but puts it out there into a different format, and it's a like I said, a live interacting form that you can get at and look at that data instead of being a static information. So that link and then the other 3 forms are posted on your website and then sent to Treasury. So that's a big deal, as it says there. That requirement drives your little over $1.3 million in state revenue sharing that you receive. If you didn't do this filing, they withhold those dollars until you do it, and so that's kind of a big deal, so to speak. And so that filing, as we continue to do that was completed very condensed. Normally, we get the information in September to transmit. I think we got the information in mid to late November, and I think we had about 14 days to get it submitted instead of 2 months, and so there was sitting and waiting and then get it done, and so that was a kind of condensed turnaround time at Treasury. So that was completed. The fourth point there related to audit field work, audit prep work, and then audit field work continues to move forward. In fact, I just got an email as we were sitting here that we would expect to draft very soon from the auditors. So kind of that preparation work, obviously, administration and administrative controller's office handles. The ladies here handle a vast majority of that. I try to help a little bit on certain things, a lot of the federal grant work. I kind of gather that information, put that together to provide to the auditors. That's kind of one of my focus areas with audit prep work. So that was done and provided to the auditors once we had all that information completed. The fifth point there is a change in presentation of some information in what we call your 700 funds, your trust and agency funds. That information, I did a lot of that, or started that last quarter, finished it this quarter, and provided it to the auditors. Basically a new presentation under this new GASB, Government Accounting Standard, GASB 84, in taking those 700 funds and compiling and summarizing the data like we've never had to do before. And so I got that done. We actually had a meeting. I had a meeting with the auditors on Friday, and they looked over the information. They seemed to be content with that. So that was a success. And but a lot of information, or a lot of as Treasurer Pickens knows, a lot of information flows through that 700 fund. A lot of their dollars flows through there, and so forth. So kind of taking that and condensing it down. And putting it in a format that can be presented in the audit was something we've never had to do before. But under this new standard, we had to do that. So I didn't want to change the daily accounting for that. I didn't want to have the departments have to do a whole bunch of different things. So we compiled it a little bit differently for the auditors to gather that information. So it didn't change the departmental processes, because I know the courts use the 700 fund a lot, and like I said, Treasurer's office and a lot of various different departments use that. So got that complete, attended various meetings and work sessions, and then had several of what I would call informal meetings, but more with administrator controller staff and going through questions and things like that as the quarter progressed. Continued to review journal entries. Point number 7, continued to look at that process. Obviously, a vast majority of the journal entries are done either here in this office, or the Treasurer's office posts a vast majority of a lot of journal entries also. So kind of just continuing to review that process. And then also reviewing those quarterly revenue and expenditure reports that come out. And I think that's the next thing on the agenda is kind of continuing to produce those and assist in that preparation and transmission to the commissioners, so you can see where we stand on a quarterly basis. I don't know if there's any questions on that? I think I probably went through a lot more than you wanted to hear. So but if there's any questions, happy to answer those.
I have a couple of questions. Look, you've been real busy. I know the ebb and flow of your work varies as responsibilities pop up for certain reports. But I know 4 years ago, maybe it was only 3 years ago, and I'm going to find that when we had our strategic planning goal setting session. But out of that session, we did have from the County Board of Commissioners a desire to have a planning tool, a forecast for our operational budget. And I know we've been talking about 3 years, 5 years, and I noticed in the past your report has at least given some identification to that. It's no longer even on your list. Is there a reason for that?
No, I think we wanted to concentrate on things that we got completed in the quarter, and so that was kind of the logic there, was rather than project out what we we're potentially going to do in the future. We completed the certain items for the quarter, and then so we presented on those. It's kind of the logic of the layout of the report.
And I know the ebb and flow of your work changes, but it would seem like in 3 to 4 years that we could have some kind of document, especially as we're looking at bonding for 40 years for $40.5 million project. As County Board Commissioners, one of our primary responsibilities is the fiscal well-being of the county and the sustainability of its services. I take that seriously and feel that this planning document is something I need to be able to vote on that jail bonding project when it comes up for a final vote. I don't know where you are on it, but
yeah,
No.
we're in the process of kind of developing a template. So I think when we're ready to move on that, I think we can absolutely do that as soon as we're ready.
Margaret?
Commissioner, we have been working on a document similar to that. I have had discussions with the chair about what type of presentation to put together. Steve and I have worked on things. Steve has worked on it. Steve is part of the administrative and controllers unit. And I'm happy to talk to you and have a discussion about this. Happy to do that. I have the document that you say you're trying to find from March 6th. I'm happy to share it with you. So you and I can talk about that if you'd like to do that. But Steve's, reporting on what he's done and what the priorities are in the quarter. And I understand your frustration, but I think your frustration should be more aimed at me than Steve.
The only thing I'm looking for is full transparency on our fiscal impacts for this project before we make that decision. And I think that is something that is due to the county board, and it just hasn't been coming forward. And that gives me a reason to ask these questions. I have one final question before I open it up to the floor for other questions. And you may not be able to answer this right. Well, there's two questions. One, currently our bonding is paid off. Do we have any
Yes.
bonding obligations other than the drains right now?
No, we do not. Our bonding, no, we do not have any other obligations whatsoever.
Okay, and drain obligations don't impact the county's bonding dollar amount?
I
Drain
Don't-
projects?
know I don't know if Mr. Pickens would be able to answer that. I don't know, Steve, if you would know that. I think, that's, they look at that. Actually, that's what I'm working on right now, is there's a continuing disclosures with PFM and that's right on my desk right now. And so I'm working on that process, and they are, those get reported on the annual disclosure information. I don't know what ramification or what impact that has on your rating, and the bond rating and so forth. I think because those are they're in what's called that component unit, the drain office, and I don't know if it has a direct impact on, if you had other bond projects that were county related, that would be on the list. I don't know if it has a impact on that specific rating or not, Commissioner. I'm not sure.
So
One
our
final
financial,
question.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, just to add on to what Steve said, our financial advisor, Mr. Treziak, has spoken often about the fact that it's very unusual for a county not to have outstanding bonds or debts. and that we are in a great position to sell these bonds and to get a good rate for them. And we need to remember that interest rates, I don't want to say they're at an all-time low, but they are certainly at a low rate at this point. So this is the time to, according to our financial advisor, to move the project forward.
All right, the final question I have, and you can just send this by email unless you pop that figure out of your mind, is according to state statutes of limitations, what is the maximum amount that can be bonded by Isabel County government?
I want to say it's 10% of your, and again, maybe Treasurer Pickens would know, but I think it's 10% of your SEV is the cap.
Okay.
Getting a head shake, so that maybe that's right. So I think it's 10% of your SEV, and again, maybe Steve would know that your SEV. I don't, but it and I know you're obviously this bonding issue would be substantially under that, but I think it's 10% of your SEV, Commissioner.
Okay, well, I'm not sure what the SEV is right now. I can try to look it up, but if someone could give me that figure, the maximum amount of bonding ability we have, I'd appreciate it. Other questions, comments on the report? Commissioner Horton.
Yeah, I'm going to echo Margaret, and I have had discussions in regards to, as you mentioned, a planning document. I'm not going to use that term exactly, but yeah, we are discussing, and Steve's going to be working on some stuff. As far as the bonding goes, two things. I'm going to digress a little bit. And my thought process, and again, I'm not a bond attorney or anything like that, but I know a lot with Jerry, you mentioned the drain obligations, and Steve, you can jump on this, or both Steves. God, a lot of Steves today. But I know the county pledges full faith and credit a lot of times behind some bonds and loans. I don't know if that affects us. I think they may look at that and say, worst case scenarios, whatever, but I'm sure that's going to be weighed in, but I don't think it's going to be given great weight if we have a lot of, the bond drains. I know we did some of the ones up in the Clare area not too long ago. We pledged full faith and credit. I think the road commission, before they switched, was asking us to do the same thing. So that might be an issue. I don't think that'll be even an issue, but I think that's where, as far as obligations would go under a full faith and credit obligation, I don't see that being anything. But I just as I'm sitting here, again, I shouldn't say this without thinking, but I always do. Margaret will testify to that. That's one of my things. I just fly out. That's what these plant commission meetings are for. We can say things. I would think that when we're making our bond requests and doing all and showing us our financial stability, a lot of questions, and Jerry, I think some of the issues that you've raised are probably going to have to be addressed before we're given the bonds. I mean, I'm assuming, because anybody that's applied for loans or applied for anything like that, there's a lot of disclosures you have to make. And both Steves, feel free to jump in here, but I would think that you're going to have to give some type of projections. You're going to have to give some way of how are you going to pay this back if everything goes south? What's your county? You got your SEV. That's why they ask the SEV in case, hey, you have to go out for a tax. So I think there's a lot of different mechanisms in place when we get going forward on this loan bid. Again, it's all going to come due pretty quickly. So I think those are being out there. And as far as specifically goes, there's some issues I've had going forward with our fund, with our planning going forward too. And that is going to be addressed, and we're working on that. But again, I think it could very well be a lot of that's going to be answered in the bit for the amount with the USDA thing. If that's what we choose to do, I'm assuming that's what we're choosing. If we're going out 40 years, I think a lot of that's already going to have to be included on that. I would think. Wouldn't Steve Korinovic, Steve K, am I correct in that statement or not?
I would think that they'd want to see, some sort of projection, probably very high level. I would think, they don't want the weeds, they don't want to get in the weeds of all the details of, how did since Mr. Pickens done how the treasurer's office, what their expenses increased, or whatever. They're not going to want to know that detail, but they might look at the kind of the overarching activity of the general fund, the general government and public safety and public works and those kind of high rolled up projections. But they're not going to want to, I wouldn't assume they wouldn't want to get in the weeds, but I would think they'd want some sort of I don't want to say crude, but rough estimates, projecting out for a few years. It's just, and Chairman, like you said before, is, who could have predicted certain things, and so to do that much more than a couple years, 2-3 years, I think is would be, probably not beneficial, and so doing it at a high level and doing it, over what I would consider a short term, 3 years or something like that, would seem realistic, and I would think that they would look for something like that. probably.
Margaret, I saw you raise your hand there. So I know you've had experience with doing these projects too. What have you seen?
I think, yes, and I do think that we need to remember that we have included in the motion or the resolution that passed at the board meeting last week, we have 2 organizations that are the professionals in this. One is our bond attorney and the other is the financial advisor. That's their expertise. This is what they do for a living. And both of those organizations are top notch. I've worked with Tom Tresiak on projects before. I was happy to see him on the, I was happy to see him on the road commission project when he was on that project, when they were looking at going in a different direction, because I know his competence, I know his background, I know the fact that he's very well respected and has made a great reputation for himself. And I've worked with him personally in another county on bond projects, and he is very good. Dickinson Wright, they're one of the 2 top law firms in the state known for bonding. The other one is Miller Canfield. So I feel like we're in great hands as we get closer to anything, certainly way far out from anything. We will have Tom Tresiak come to a finance committee, probably come to the board meeting. And he'll talk to you and be able to answer questions much better than anybody on the screen today. It's his expertise, and we've agreed to that in the resolution that passed last week, and I think we need to take advantage of that. So rather than have us try to, he's the expert. Let's just do that. Let's just say that he is the expert, and we will be relying on him. And when I say we, I mean the Board of Commissioners administration. And so what I can do, is arrange to have him come up in a work session and talk to the board about the process and answer all those questions with a much higher level of experience and expertise than any of us. So I'm happy to arrange that if that's what you would like.
Well, first of all, yeah, hearing, I don't know how quickly we're going to be doing it, able to do a face-to-face or in a meeting session, because we're going to be Zooming. So when you said come up, I'm sure he can tie into a meeting or something like that. Come in.
I meant come in.
You're all, see, I know,
apologize.
Margaret, I love to correct you on things. I was just waiting for my time to jump in there.
Oh, there's lots of opportunity,
Yeah,
trust me.
Same here. Yeah, exactly. On my end too. Yeah, again, we are treading into what now we are going into waters. I would say eyes wide open. Yeah, eyes are wide open too. And we're going to do this right. We're going to do this. So as Commissioner Jelezinski said, all commissioners, Commissioner Hutchinson, Mark McAvoy, Steve Krinovic, Steve Pickens, Jessica Jarosowitz, I think I said that right, actually, and Nicole Frost.
You did. Good job.
All agree that we are not going to do anything wrong for this county, and we're going to do the best for this county. And the decisions that we make in the next year or two, we're not just going to affect our board this term or these two years, but it's going to be affecting down the road. So any decision that we make is going to have a lot of consequences going forward. So everything's going to be weighed heavily. Everything's going to be appreciated. And that's I've said before, my focus as chairperson is getting this jail built. And that's not the principal focus, but it's very high. I can even say it's my principal focus, to be honest with you, as far as chairperson. I think that's, and all of us need input. All of us need, I think the quote transparency, I don't think that's a great quote, but all of us need knowledge. All of us need to bring everything we can to discussions. And the more input, the better, to make logical and informed decisions going forward. So that's all I've got. I know that was kind of a soapbox and not really anything on that. But Jerry, do you have anything else? Or Steve? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry, you got to wait.
Go ahead, Steve.
Just as you asked, Commissioner, on the asking, and ye shall receive, as Nicole sprinted from her office to bring me some of the SEV information, and so from last year's continuing disclosure form, the state equalized value for 19, so last year was 2 billion with a B, 2,438,000,000, and then a bunch of other numbers, but so basically 2.4 billion. And so that 10% that we talked about, that 10% of that SEV is 243 million is your cap, or, is your ceiling. And as of last year, again, and I don't think there was any new drain. They do look at the other bonding, so your drain debt and some of the wastewater. So basically, a lot of the drain debt last year was almost 14 million. So you take that 243 million minus, I'm going to say 13 million because I can do this math in my head. 243 minus 13, so you have about a $230 million gap, or ability to, to utilize. So you're way under, even if this is again, let's say it's 30 million, just because again, do that math, so 30 million or 40 million, whatever the project is, you're still going to have 190 million, gap in that cap, or that legal margin.
Thank you for getting that information, Steve. I appreciate it. Just the final comment I will make is I know the bond experts will be able to forecast whether or not we can pay the bond back, but again, I know every project has its impacts, and we don't know what those impacts are. Even as basic as but there might be some increase in the cost of operating our law enforcement departments and services. But if we're transferring money that has gone to our operational budget in the past, because we've overspent that budget in probably 4 of 6 years that I've been on the commission, and then there's going to be impacts. There's good impacts, there's bad impacts, but I think we need to know what those impacts are. So I will move that we accept and place on file the fiscal year 2021 first quarter financial management services report as presented.
Jerry, I'm going to support that, but I'd like to have the discussion on your last comment. As far as the last taking it out, I don't know if that's. I know we've had taken it out of our fund balances and things like that, but I know there's been dollars going back, so I don't know exactly. I think the last year, I think we got it back, all of it. So, I mean, I know sometimes I always complain too at the beginning that we're pulling it out, but we're putting it back in. I know on this last budget, Nicole worked on it and everyone worked on it. And a lot of that money that we've taken out is going to be put back in. So that's always, with budgets, I think with our turbine or with our jail expenditures, those are both, I think, coming back to us. Correct, Steve? I think with the last one, I think with the expenditures, I think those were coming back once we get the bond. Is that a correct statement? Everything we took out of that is coming back. So, yeah, Mark.
And
Yeah.
I know last year we did have some money returned, but we still had to depend on some of the general fund and delinquent tax or whatever, something. We just didn't spend as much of it. Margaret?
We've never overspent the budget, Commissioner. We may have transferred funds in when the Board of Commissioners approved the budget, but in the 7 years I've been the administrator controller, I have never overspent the budget. So I just want to clarify that. And also I will say that the next report, I'm going to have some information about a tentative usage of the fund balance compared to what was budgeted for the year that ended on September 30th. So when we get to that, I'll say again, as I usually say at this time of year, when we get these tentative information, it's good news. So I guess the term we've overspent the budget is just something that as an administrator controller, I want to clarify because we have not technically overspent the budget. The Board of Commissioners has approved the budget and the budget may include transferring in other funds, as most county budgets do. So I just want to clarify from my staff's end, because there's a lot of people affected, a lot of people who work very hard, and a lot of people who do a great job to make sure we don't do something like overspend the budget. I just want to clarify that on their behalf.
I apologize. If I said that, I didn't mean to insinuate that we spent the budget. What was on the back of my mind, first year I was elected to the county board, we had about a $10 million plus fund balance, which represented about 50% of our operational budget. Even before the money's being used for the jail, I think that's down probably less than 5 million. So, I mean, we've depended heavily on those resources that are now going to be directed to the jail. And, you know, how do we maintain a stable operational budget if we don't have those resources because of transfer? I guess these are things that are questions that I have, and hopefully other commissioners have before we make that final decision, and we'll get some answers. And if I'm wrong, I'll apologize. I don't want to be a chicken little. I'd like to see this project move forward, but I do have some concerns. We have a motion on the floor in a second to consider accepting and placing on file the fiscal year 2021 first quarter financial management services report as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Our next item is consider accepting and placing on file the fiscal year 2021 first quarter financial report as presented.
Sure, I will do that, Commissioner Chairman, if that's okay with you. Present it.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I want to say before I present this is the work of the staff in the Administrator Controller's Office. One thing that we talked about this morning in a previous meeting, a grant that had come through the Criminal Justice Committee that's going to go to the full board next week. And we were talking about the number of grants that are administered by the Administrator Controller's Office, because we do the finances for all of those and many of the reports. And so I brought up the recommendation, well, the suggestion, and we will do this. I'm going to have my staff prepare a spreadsheet of all of the grants that we have, and I mean in the county that we have, that are financially administered through the Administrator Controller's Office. I think that would be great information. You approve a lot of grants, and as I was saying in the other meeting, I as somebody who has managed grants my entire career, and I worked with them, a lot of federal grants for the first 20 or 25 years of my career. I always say this to my department heads or to other people. They say, do you think we can get a grant for that? And I always say, maybe, but remember, it's not monopoly money. Grant money is not monopoly money. It's the taxpayers' money somewhere. If it's the federal government, it's all of our money. If it's the state, then it's all of us who live in the state. And if it's Isabella County's, the same. If it's a grant from someone, you know, we get community foundation grants. We get Department of, I'm trying to think if we still have a Department of Corrections grant. I might need to walk that back. But we get a lot of grants and a lot of funds. And it was very important to me as the Administrator Controller to make sure those were being managed financially properly. Because if they're not, and the federal government particularly has what they refer to as a disallowed cost, and we go through all the appeal of that or whatever, eventually, if they disallow that cost, it's got to be paid back from general funds. So I always take the management of grants pretty seriously. So just want to let you know that, I just wanted to let you know we're going to put that spreadsheet together. I think you'll find that interesting and see how much money all of our offices and departments bring in, and the courts in grants and other funds. So let's just go with this first sheet here, which is the financial comparison of budget. This is, of course, as of the first quarter, which ended December 31st. I always caution people when you go to the bottom here, percent, and you say, oh my gosh, we've only received 6.19% of our expected revenues. You have to remember that this is a time-sensitive report. So a lot of our revenues are not in yet, or we're not in at that date. Obviously, they're in at this point. But I wanted you to know that that's not something to panic about, particularly if you're a newer commissioner. I think that is a bit of a shock. So let's go through the revenues, you know, as far as taxes, about 4.4 million. were reversed out of the tax revenue in the current fiscal year because it was for the previous fiscal year. So booked a receivable at the end of last fiscal year and cleared it into the current year. So when you look at taxes, yep, as of December 31st, that is where we are. It's nothing to panic about. That's where we are every year. Licenses and permits, you know, there were not as many expenses when we get to the expenses in the wind turbine project. Therefore, you know, we're not using the revenues to cover those expenses. So for those of you who are not aware, you know, we have funds that we have on deposit from the wind turbine company. So as we had, kind of stumbling over my words, I apologize for that. We had the turbine company put on deposit funds. So as we needed to expend those out, we're not paying for those. The wind turbine company is. So we have approximately $350,000 left in the escrow account from what started at $589,000 to complete the wind project. At this point, you know, those are not, and they will not be any expense to the county. It's a wash. So the money went into escrow as we need to pay out bills from that project. And that's, so like rural engineering that we work with, that's where those payments come from. They are in that escrow account. So they're not coming out of the general fund. And dog licenses are down. I don't have an answer for why that is. It just is. So you can look at the licenses and permits. Under charges for services, you know, some of that's timing. COVID has made some of the trial court revenue to be lower than usual because they were not having cases. They were not having court. They have been having court under Zoom since June or earlier. I did serve on that committee that the Supreme Court Justice put Judge Janes and I on. I was on as a representative of county government. Certainly Judge Janes, as the chief judge, was on that committee to help figure out how to do the Zoom meetings, make that work. I will say our trial court has done a phenomenal job on what they have accomplished and what they've been doing. And I believe you all got the email from me last Friday that they did have, they were hoping to have their first jury trial this week. That did happen Monday. They did seat a jury. I don't know what's happened since Monday, but I know that got seated at about noon yesterday. So there will be the first jury trial going on. And just for your knowledge, there are not very many jury trials going on any place across the state. So I would think Isabella County's trial court will be looked at and given a lot of attention, probably from the state court administrator's office. And I'm sure you can rest assured they're doing a fabulous job. You know, the other thing too is the diverted felon state revenue was received in FY21, but it was all pushed back because that's when the revenues and the expenses were. The other thing to remember as we move forward is that, you know, jail population is down somewhat, again, because due to COVID, as many people who were being sentenced to jail previously were not being sentenced to jail. Looking at other, and I don't want to speak for the court, but certainly looking at other avenues for the nonviolent criminals. That was a issue to try to keep COVID cases down in county jails and prisons across the state. Interest and rent, interest earned revenue is less due to the COVID emergency. We're looking at, you know, that's just the reality. Transfer in from CPL. The entry to transfer in monies is usually done in the second quarter. So that hasn't been transferred in. And then the transfer to other funds, that entry to transfer monies is usually done at year end. So again, don't panic about the revenues. I think that we're going to be okay. We're always in this position in the first quarter. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, let's go to the next page, which is the financial comparison budget to actual general fund expenditures. The jury board, you'll see that there has been zero spent on the per diem. That is because there weren't any juries. The general expenses are low due to the number of lack of juries happening at the court. Administration, $317,000 pertain to the jail project and will be reimbursed in FY21. We will do a budget adjustment closer to the end of the year as needed. So that's why that percent is high. Elections, most expenditures pertain to the November 2020 election. And I guess at this point, I would like to tip my hat to the county clerk and her office too. They did a fabulous job in their election activities this year under difficult circumstances. Managed assigned counsel, that's dependent on the number of cases that we have. Again, we certainly are doing representation at first appearance. The Public Defender's Office has certainly kept up with talking to any defendants that have been referred to them, working with folks who are in the jail, making sure we have first appearances. But again, cases have been somewhat lower this year. That'll pick up too. Remonumentation, most invoices that were received in October, December were pushed back to the prior fiscal year. So that's why that is down. Central services, some bigger, that's generally what we pay postage of. Some of our bigger postage projects for delinquent departments like the treasurer and equalization occurred. That's primarily what those are. They have their big postage times for things to go out. Not unusual for us to be at that point. Marine safety, that's timing. We'll have more expenditures when people get back on the lakes and back on the rivers. Drains at large, that's a timing issue. These payments are made in April. The landfill, very little activity so far this fiscal year from the drain office. We have not received December expenses yet at this point when this was done. The medical examiner, again, we pay that monthly. We had not received the December bill when this was completed, but that generally is done quarterly, and that will catch up. Human Rights Committee, they had very little activity this year, so there was very little expenditures for their per diem, any other line items they had. And the transfer out to MIDC, that's the transfer of our local share, which goes out and is part of our signed contract with the state. Under other funds, you look at the other funds, and under the revenues, I'm sorry. I got my paper stapled together in the wrong order. I apologize. I apologize. You're listening to those pop off. I apologize. So other funds revenues, parks and recreation. That's a timing of the millage. It's a seasonal revenue. Front of the court, again, the CRP grant reimbursement for approximately $90,000 for October, December was not received at the time the report was done, so that will go up. Commission on Aging, again, that has to do with millage timing. Child Care Fund grant reimbursements for October through December had not yet been received from the state. So those reports are usually filed. I mean, our reports are filed timely, but we have to get the reports back from the state. Central Dispatch, that's an accrual of revenue relating to prior fiscal year. Recycling, accrual of $80,000 in revenue relating to the previous fiscal year. Under expenditures, Park and Recreation, again, that is under expenditures, that is a timing seasonal issue. The Child Care Fund is down because there's less youth in those programs that the court is assigning out. I will tell you, does anybody have any questions on that? I went through that fairly quickly before I move on. Does anybody have any questions I could answer or try to answer or get information for you?
Just one question, Margaret, on the expenditure for cooperative extension. I see they're at 48.76%. And I know we have an agreement that we probably pay quarterly. Why is that more than?
We pay, yes, we divide that. We pay it quarterly. They happen to send that bill, and in December we paid it. So that's how come it's for this quarter. It'll even out over the next couple of reports.
All right, thank you.
Well, Margaret,
Yes, sir.
real quick, one of the things that maybe I'm missing something, or you can explain, I know there's more into it than just these charts on what we're looking at here, is let's look at recycling on the MRF. We budgeted the revenue that was coming in is 1.233, and the expenditures going out, we bought 1.427. how is that difference made up? I know we fund some out of the general fund towards that, but what's going on there? Can you explain a little bit? Maybe I'm missing something there, or there's, what is the spread between the expenditures minus the revenue is a negative. So where is that negative made up? How is that accounted for? And if you could quickly do that.
Let me get back to you on that. I'll send an email out to the board.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that.
I have another question. It's not directly related to these sheets, but I've been reading about the $1.9 trillion COVID funds, and looks like local government may be in line for. Do you have any information on what revenues the county may receive from the feds?
Well, Commissioner, it's interesting you asked that question because I was reading an article last night on it in my insomnia. As I was reading an article last night on it, and a lot of the reference in that article was to cities and states. And I'm concerned. I don't see the word counties in any of the stuff that I'm looking at. I know that I had Nicole attend a webinar for me yesterday, a podcast, I believe, from MAC, and she and I haven't had a chance to debrief, but I can tell you, we will, but I can tell you any possible revenues that can possibly be allocated to a county for, we will be on, and we're vigilant and trying to see what we can apply for due to COVID, as my colleagues are across the state. We have a great network of getting with each other and sharing information and, asking, are you doing this? Are you doing that? It's interesting. It was a big discussion about this a couple of weeks via email with many county administrators and county controllers and those of us who have both hats on. And it was interesting in those discussions looking at what people thought they might be able to use some of the funding that's currently available and looking at how we all approach it, which is what makes county government so unique. But I don't have a definitive answer for you, Commissioner. I will tell you that, if those funds go to the states and the counties are not necessarily directly stated in anything, I will be working through our legislative folks to see exactly what that's going to do for counties. And I'm already trying to get in contact with my contact at Senator Peters' office to find out exactly where counties are in that national proposed legislation. So trying to work my contacts.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Do you have additional comments on this item then, or?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. And this is tentative. It's not like, pulled out of the air. There is some, there's an interesting, there's supporting information of why we're looking at where we're going to be at. But I think I just wanted to give you this heads up. And to go back to something too about the current audit that I think Mr. Kranovich may have said, just so you know, how we present the audit, I don't present the audit, how the auditors present the audit, they will be presenting at the work session via Zoom, the second meeting in March, okay? But you remember at the last couple of years, I switched it up some and kind of brought a summary to the Finance Committee. We will be doing that before that meeting. So I will be bringing you a summary. We'll go over the summary. That'll give you as the Finance Committee time to look at that, ask questions, interact, call me. We'll get whatever we can taken care of. And then the full presentation will be at the last work session of March. So we're in the planning stages of how to do that. I spoke with Steve yesterday and I said, Steve, we're going to need any type of documents that will be going to the Finance Committee and eventually to the board by March 3rd from our audit, because I want to make sure that we get that to this committee before it gets presented to the work session. So just wanted to know that about the audit. So looking at the projected ending in fund balance, which I know is always an interesting topic. We were looking at just in general at this point from very preliminary information from the audit is that we received $536,853 in excess of the revenues that were budgeted. So as of September 30th, 2020, we received in excess more than $500,000 of revenues than we expected to receive in the budget. Our expenditures, we did not spend $672,948 that were in that budget. So that's going to be good news. I know it was projected from fund balance that was projected that we would use $1,350,153. We had originally projected to use 284, but we needed to add the 600,000 for the jail project and 455,000 for the wage. So that total would be that it was projected in the budget to use $1,350,153 from fund balance. Fund balance, we will most likely use $140,000. So I think a couple things that's important in these discussions as we move forward, and it's important for all of us to remember, the budget is a living document, good, bad, or ugly, positive or negative, it's a living document. And what gets passed on September before the end of the fiscal year changes as we go through the year. That's why we give you these quarterly reports. That wasn't done in this format, at least previously. And that's something that we talk about transparency a lot. And as a public official, we all are very cognizant of that. And I think this group is very dedicated to that. But the purpose of the quarterly reports was to provide another level of transparency to the Board of Commissioners, or information to the Board of Commissioners, transparency to the public, because those are in the public realm now too. You look at what was budgeted to be used in fund balance for a number of years, and if we look at what we actually used, they're not the same figure. They're never greater, certainly, because that's not what we're going to do. But as the budget ebbs and ties and things come up that we don't know is going to come up or whatever, adjustments are made. We manage that on virtually a daily basis. So when you look at this information, again, please remember that also approximately $1 million so far will be repaid to the general fund when we sell bonds for the jail project. So I just want to keep everybody informed, and we can all, I could certainly pick out this, that, or the other thing, and just tell you that. But I want you to know, I want the commissioners to know the whole story. And the whole story is the management of the finances is the responsibility of the controller. And I take that responsibility very seriously. And if there is something else you want to know, you think you're interested in, I'm happy to provide that. But I think when you look at the information that we are providing, it's a lot more than there used to be. Not that that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, that it didn't used to be as productive information as it is now. But I want you to know, obviously, if you look at just FY 2020, given all the COVID, given all the unknowns, given the effect that had on our revenues, on our expenses, on our employees, and the public we serve, it's looking like financially we came out of that okay, probably better than okay. I don't have a great answer for that at this point, but it seems to be that way. So I think that you'll be happy when you get that draft condensed maybe report on the budget in your 2nd February Finance Committee. And then Raymond will be attending via Zoom, of course, the work session of the last board meeting in March. I'm thinking that's the 16th, but I don't have a calendar right in front of me, but pretty darn close. I think it is the 16th.
Yep.
So that will be when they're presenting at the work session. And we'll present it to you in a condensed format. Steve and I, when I say we, it's a mouse in my pocket. Steve Koronovich and I, Steve will be doing most of that presentation. As I say all the time, I didn't listen to my mom and go to law school, but my mom never suggested I become a CPA, Steve. So we're lucky to have you. So that's kind of the process we'll be doing moving forward with the audit. But I wanted to give you the snapshot on the fund balance because I know it's something that we're all curious about and concerned about. And I thought that you would like to know that positive information.
Thank you, Margaret. Any other questions or comments on the list?
Oh, Jerry, Margaret, what was your dates again? I wrote down I figured it was the 9th for the Finance Administration Committee when we're going to see the draft of the budget. So hopefully that'll be a good birthday present for me, Margaret. So
I
just
know.
remember- Just remember that. I'll be probably down in Florida, so I'm going to be zooming from the great state of Florida, hopefully.
There you go.
And then you said something about second February Finance Committee. What was,
No. It's going to be the Finance Committee on March. I'm going to pull my calendar up.
so the first one in March,
I
right?
believe it.
It's the 9th.
Yes.
March
Right.
9th.
Just so you feel better about it's going to be on your around your birthday. We're going to talk about the audit. The due date for everything to be delivered to the administrator's office for us to get the information out to you folks is March 3rd, which happens to be my birthday. So good things happened in March.
There you go.
There you go. So it will go to the Finance Committee, the synopsis on the 19th, and then Raymond, and that will come from Steve Krenovic. And then on the 16th, which is the second Board of Commissioners meeting for the month, Raymond will be participating by Zoom at the work session at 4 p.m. on March 16th, and they will present the audit. And then on your evening agenda, we'll have the information prepared for you to make a motion to accept that. Raymond has to file that audit with Department of Treasury by the end of the month.
I have a couple more questions. Now, they audit, that's fiscal year ending 9/30/2020, correct?
Yes.
All right, Treasurer Pickens, can you hear me? What have you seen on the September? Again, that's just me just thinking up, I'm writing down questions here. What have you seen with the collections or the delinquency and the taxes from the September taxes? Is it nothing out of the ordinary, same as before, levels different, more people aren't paying taxes? Obviously, if we're hitting these numbers, I would think that there really hasn't been much of a change in the status quo. Is that a correct assumption or not a correct assumption?
Well, the city of Mount Pleasant has said that they were down in their collections. I don't know where off the top of my head where we're at, but we're down a little bit. I know that some of the people that we have in the forfeiture and the foreclosure process has gained as well. Dollars amounts I can't tell you off the top of my head, but
Okay. All right. I was just, like I said, sorry to put you on the spot there. I know you had yourself
All right.
zoomed, but it's muted. Steve Kerner will tell you that I do that all the time to him. So if you're going to participate, be ready, baby.
That's fine.
There you go. So that's just like, again, thank you for that, answering that. And I think that's all I have, Jerry.
Okay, I will move that considering accepting and placing on file the fiscal year 2021 first quarter financial report as presented.
I'll support that.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It moves forward. The last item is invoice list discussion. I did look at, reviewed both of them. May have some questions. I guess, again, they look like they're very customary and understandable. The only question, or maybe the comment I have, is, Margaret, you made a comment about using grants. We don't use them frivolously. They are people's tax money. Only thing I'm disappointed when we had I'm trying to think what the name of the gentleman from Veterans Affairs, when I asked him about how the advertising
Mr. Welch.
was going. What's that?
Mr. Welsh, Ian Welsh.
Ian, yep. Indicated that there wasn't much of an increase in visitation, and maybe that's due to the pandemic. But I know on that second list, looks like we have another 46, almost $47,000 that we're using on advertising. I wish that that would have brought more of a beneficial result for the veterans. Whether or not it's not being seen or if it's not the right venue. I'm just commenting. I'd like to see more
Sure.
those dollars spent.
No, I think that's a good comment. I will tell you the original grant, and again, the Veterans Affairs office, I'll just use that term, don't want to confuse it with an elected official office, but the Veterans Affairs Office is an interesting structure in that the county pays, of course, the wages and fringes of that individual. We support him. We work with him. We manage the grant financially. We do other things with Ian to try to be helpful. But technically, according to state statute, Ian, that particular individual works for the Veterans Committee. He doesn't report to me. We don't hire that position. It's interesting how that is in state statute. I will say this is that I don't know if it was the year, I believe it may have been the year before last. I've lost track of time in the COVID stuff, but the first year, maybe it was last year, the first year we had that grant, that marketing program got huge attention at the Veterans Affairs Office in Lansing, huge attention. And the firm that did that for us, King Media out of Lansing, the owner of that firm won a national award for that campaign. And that was a great thing. However, like you, Commissioner Jablonski, those are all great things, but we want to get the services out to the veterans, and we want to make sure veterans are aware of what's available to them. And that's why when that first grant came out, and it could be used to all sorts of things, we put the campaign together, and the state was happy with that. Obviously, the state's happy with what that campaign looked like because they funded it again. But like you, I'd like to know statistically, is there an upswing and visits, calls, emails, whatever? And so I'm happy to talk to Ian and say, hey, Ian, start keeping some stats on that. My concern will be, Commissioner, just so that you know, is I don't know that stats previously exist to show a comparison, but I want to make sure those services are getting out too. And even more concerned than that is my concern to make sure that those, I'm going to use the term gift cards, I'm not even sure that's exactly the right term, but the cards that are available for Myers for veterans to purchase food and other things that they need. They can't purchase liquor or cigarettes with it, but they can purchase all sorts of other things, food, toilet paper, those types of household goods. That's a direct financial benefit to veterans in our county. And I want to make sure that those cards are getting to where they need to get and that people are receiving those services. So I will have that discussion with Ian, but again, it's a good relationship, don't get me wrong, but we don't really have much authority over that. But I think that he is a veteran, and he is certainly interested in trying to make sure that he's providing good quality services. But I'll follow up with him. That's a good question.
I appreciate that. And it wasn't meant to be critical to any decision made. I know there's grants. Just as a disabled veteran, I'd like to have seen more of an impact from those dollars, and because I know there's people out there that need that help, and for whatever reason, they're not seeking it.
One of the things that one of the things that I did talk to Ian about last year was getting out into the service organizations to start attending things like going to VFWs, going to American Legions, going to those organizations, meeting with people, getting presentations. That was part of what we received that original grant for. And we have a lot of things that he could be doing that with. But again, in COVID, nobody's having those. So there's not a home show. There's not a job fair. There's not all those things that we had kind of planned on with him and coming up with the plan on, let's have you attending all of these. And he, I think, maybe attended one or so before COVID hit, and then none of those have been scheduled. So getting the information out, you're right, that's not going to make a difference in the wraps on the buses. Those are out and about. But some of the other things that he had wanted to do, and I know that he will do once those things kind of quote unquote start opening up, I think there's probably a large number of veterans who are not. I have a veteran, one of my brothers is a veteran, and I know that he still to this point, has never really participated in it. He started participating and joined a Veterans Association in the last couple of years because he was interested in the political information getting to him. He was interested in that. But as far as accessing other service related benefits, he just never has. Although I talk to him all about, because when Ian gives us updates and meetings, I always spread those back to my brother, but he isn't that active in those, but I think it's important. It's important that that information gets out, and I'll talk to Ian, and I know that he is interested in doing that. So good question.
And I appreciate it. I think the outreach to the various service organizations throughout the county is important and perhaps needs.
Very important. I agree. Very important to get the information out to veterans, but very important to forge a relationship with those organizations. That's what leadership is all about, is relationships. And I would like him to forge those relationships. And once those things start opening up, he will be doing that, I'm sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Hutchinson, you had a comment?
Yeah, just, it's $1 million question when you're running a business and how you do your advertising and what is the best benefit to that. It's always, you know, how do you reach the most people? And that is important, that we can get to as many people as we can and have the people use those benefits. We deal with it every day, whether it be social media, whether it be TV, radio, right on down the line. There's so many different avenues to go, and you just want to use your dollars the best you can.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you, Commissioner Hutchinson. Other comments, questions on either one of the two lists? Would you like to make this motion?
No, actually, it's just a discussion. We don't have to.
Oh, okay.
No.
If there's nothing else, we'll do a call to the public.
There is no public at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any comments from the public sitting before on the screens before us?
No, I just like to thank all the commissioners and everybody for their input. And Steve, I like your background still. That's good. No, thank you for everyone. Jerry, it's 11:31, baby, 90 minutes, you know.
I was trying to break a record. Did I do it?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
we'll leave it
Nope,
at that.
Nope. Yeah, you got a ways to go, but let's not do it today.
Well, I was going to say, what else can we talk about?
No.
Well, as chairman of the committee, unless there's objections, I will adjourn the meeting of the Finance and Administration Committee. Old habits are hard to break.
There you go.
It
Thanks,
is.
everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
Yep.